Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. My guest today has been living in Paris since 1973, where she's worked as a journalist and a writer, even writing for such big publications such as the New York Times and the Time magazine. She's published several books, and we talk today about her newest book, Final Transgression. We also chat about what it's like to be a writer in Paris and how things have changed over the years. Please welcome to the show, Harriet Welty Rochefort. So welcome to the show, Harriet. I'm very happy to have you here because I got to meet you on our little virtual book tour, and I got to read your book and learn so much about you. And it's so interesting to learn more about your life today.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, and I'll be happy to tell you all about my life if you ask me.
I love learning about people's lives. That's the whole point for me. So let's start from the beginning. You are a journalist, you're an author, you've written several books, you're a teacher, and you've been living in France since 1973. You've been here for quite some time. So can you tell us, what was the start? What brought you here?
Oh, my goodness. It's a long story. Do you have a lot of time on here?
We have 30 minutes.
My husband always tells me when I tell the story of how I got here that it is so long and boring. It's boring to him. I'll try to be quick. But anyway, I grew up in Iowa. I don't know if you've ever been to Iowa.
Never. I just know there's a lot of cows.
There's a lot of corn and cows. Yes.
Corn and cows.
Yeah, and most Americans have never been to Iowa. They don't know where it is. And they valiantly say, oh, you mean potatoes? And I say, oh, that's Idaho.
So I can see why you left, maybe.
Yeah, really. I had to get out of there so people would stop. So anyway, I grew up in the cornfields of Iowa, and I always wanted to go to France. I had a step-grandmother who had taught French and who had lived in France. And I was only about 8 years old, and she would teach me these little French words. And I was just enthralled with this country called France. 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was my one overriding desire in life, was to go to France. It wasn't even to go to New York or Chicago.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So that's how it started.
You became obsessed at the age of 8 because of a grandmother. I feel like grandmothers instill so many things in us. I've had a lot of guests say they learned French cooking from their grandma. They learned about Paris from their grandma. There seems to be a pattern.
Grandmothers are important. You look up to them. I'm a grandma now myself. So
yeah.
I hope my grandkids are listening to things I say.
I hope so too. I feel like they're a little more valued in France. I don't know. Do you feel like we're still valuing the elderly in America? I'm not sure.
You know what? This is a problem for me because I haven't lived in America for so long. I go back once a year or so, but I have this disconnection between what's really going on in America now, current America. And so my when I think of America, I think of it in the 1950s, which, I mean, it is absolutely not the country I grew up in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, because you've been here since the 1970s. So much has changed in both countries.
Exactly. So it's really very strange. Anyway.
You're like, I don't know that America. It's funny because a lot of French people always ask me, why do you live in France? And when Trump was president, they're like, what's going on with Trump? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I live in France.
Listen, I didn't vote for him, so don't.
I don't know what's going on over there. I live in France. I have no idea. So let's talk a little bit about how France has changed you. How old were you when you arrived here? And what are some things that changed in you from being here?
Well, I came when I was relatively young. Actually, I came on a one-way ticket after I graduated from University of Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Everybody said to me, what are you going to do? And they were all going off to grad school or doing this and that and the other. And I would just show them my one-way ticket. And I said, I have a one-way ticket to France, and that's where I'm going. And so I did. And I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. I just came to France. I told you I had this desire. And
You knew it, yeah.
yeah, and I lived in a pension de famille with only French-speaking kids. And I just made my dream come true. And in those days, you could find jobs. So I worked for a very well-known journalist, as a matter of fact, as his, what they called then Girl Friday, which you would never say now because it's so politically incorrect. But I was his assistant. And I stayed around for a year in France. And then I went back to graduate school. And then I came back again. And I was going to go to Argentina that time because I said, oh, I've been there, done that. I'm going to, Okay, so I was on my way to Argentina, and a friend of mine said, "Look, before you leave, I'd just like you to meet a friend of mine." So, and so I went, and I saw this good-looking guy. He was sitting on the terrace of the Select, on Boulevard Montparnasse.
Yeah.
He's sitting there, and it's a nice summer evening, and he starts talking, and he was so funny. He just made me laugh. So I kind of put off my trip, and then we got married.
Oh, I love this. It's so sweet. So kind of a man kept you here, but I feel like Paris kept you here. Paris had other plans for you.
Yes, well, I didn't come for a man. My husband loves to say that I came to look for a French husband, which is a very weird sense of humor. But
you're like, nope.
So no, but I came because I wanted to come, and that is a big difference because I know American women here who are unhappy and have been unhappy for almost the whole time they've been here because they did come because they met a Frenchman, maybe in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came, but they didn't have that desire to know France or its culture or anything. They were just homesick.
Yeah.
But I wasn't that way. It was my decision to come. I wanted to come. So that was a whole different, set of circumstances, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you always knew that you wanted to be here, and then finding a French husband was just kind of icing on the cake. I feel like a good one. You guys are still together. You have your grandkids. You're happy.
Well, it was a total icing on the cake, also because all the men I'd met up to that date, almost all of them were creeps.
Yeah, hey, that's what happens today.
My mom was so happy I finally met somebody respectable. She didn't care if he was French or whatever.
He's like a nice man.
A nice man.
Yeah, moms like nice men. They have our best interests at heart.
Right.
And so talk a little bit about your writing career. Did you always know you wanted to be a writer, or how did that come about?
Yes, well, I always knew I wanted to be a writer, and I always knew I wanted to live in France. So why did I know I wanted to be a writer? It was just something I liked doing. And I grew up in a very small town. And in our town was, like in most small towns, a library. Andrew Carnegie was everywhere. And I would spend a lot of time reading in the library. And read and read. And the more you read, for some people at least, the more you want to write.
It's true. Yeah.
So I did write when I was in high school, and we had a town newspaper. And that was when I first saw my byline in print.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yes. And from then on, it was just, I got to write. I've got to write journalism. And I never thought at that point I would ever write a book, but I got into journalism, and I worked for 10 years in the Paris Bureau of Time magazine. And
that's so cool.
And I freelanced for many, many magazines and newspapers. So I did fulfill that desire to write.
What was it like working for Time magazine in Paris?
It was wonderful because it was the right time. Because since then, as you know, excuse me for saying it, but with podcasts, but especially blogs, everybody's writing.
Yeah.
And at that time, you wrote because you were qualified to write, and you had a boss, and you had an editor, and you had strict rules, and we just got great stories, and it was just so much fun. Those were some of the best years of my life, reporting on all kinds of things in Paris and in France.
It would be such a fascinating time to do it. And like you said, I remember I was going to university in 2008, and my professor, I wanted to study journalism. He's like, "Don't do it."
Wow.
He's like, "It's a dying industry." I'm like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, you'll starve.
Yeah, like he basically just said, "Run."
Yeah. There were,
Yeah, it was much different. And like you had a little bit more job security. Now everyone's a freelancer. So
Yeah,
you had it the good time.
I was a freelancer too, but I mean, I got to write stories about really great things, like the Pie Pyramid when it was being built in the
Mhm.
area of the Louvre, and Disneyland when it came to Paris. Got to report on that, and just so many good stories. It's just so
This is an interesting time.
yeah.
And since you've been here and you've lived through so much here, what are some of the big changes you've seen in the city? Like the people, the culture, there's some things that never change. Like talk a little bit about the changes.
Well, the changes. I mean, especially during COVID, I can't help
Yeah.
it. The cafes, that'll come back, fortunately.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
that's one thing that's changed a lot. I think I now here's my moment to dump on the mayor of Paris. But I really, this is a terrible thing to say, but I really think that under this mayor, or maybe the mayor before, but especially this mayor, uh, Paris has become. Paris will always be the most beautiful city in the world for me, but I think it's suffered from benign neglect and a few too many high-rise buildings
Hmm.
and some ugly projects like they redid all the Place de Paris, which is a good
Hmm.
idea, but I don't like the urban kind of the banquette, the benches that they put on them, and there are a lot
Yeah.
of little uh, mistakes in taste. I think
Hmm.
that's me being the curmudgeon. What else has changed? Well, when I first came here, I mean, nobody ate hamburgers, and nobody was standing up in the street or in the metro.
They're so popular now.
Oh my god! I mean, that is just amazing change. Of course, what good change, because we always have to talk about the good, is people aren't smoking anymore in restaurants. And when all those years when people were smoking, I thought I was going to die because
Oh gosh.
I didn't smoke, and they were smoking over me and on me. And every time I would sit down and have a nice meal, it would wreck my meal. And so that at least is a good, very positive change.
Yeah, it's so crazy how new that is too. I mean, it's really not that long ago that there was a smoking section. I mean, do they have smoking sections or was it just you can smoke anywhere in the restaurant always?
Oh, there was no smoking section. If you went to a restaurant, man, you were in for it.
Yeah, yeah, you had no choice.
Yeah, you had no choice. It was just, and if you complained, that people looked at you like you were crazy. So that's a big change. Dogs in restaurants? I don't know about you've got a dog, don't you? Do you take your dog to a restaurant?
I do, and most of them are pretty cool about it. I would say Paris is pretty nice about dogs. They don't like them in the supermarkets, but basically anywhere else.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, that always shocked me as an American, hygiene, food, and all that kind of stuff. But the French are pretty loose about that. So,
Yeah, they're super loose. I feel like the Italians are the same way.
yeah.
And have you seen any changes like through like women's movement and sexism? It's kind of the things that France was kind of known for a little bit. Like, have you seen changes in that as well?
Well, that Me Too movement really, I mean, that's recent, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's good because there were a lot of male chauvinist pigs uh,
Hmm.
all over the place, and it was accepted. And I mean, I just I just saw a lot of stuff I just could not believe, and it was so accepted to be sexist and make off color or inappropriate remarks. Uh,
Yeah.
I just hope it doesn't go too much the other way. I thought for certain things, um, like the cancel culture kind of thing.
Yeah. Explain that a little bit.
Well, the cancel culture in the States is if you are offended by anything like the statue of somebody who was a racist or a sexist or something, then
Hmm.
you cancel that statue out. That's to say, you take it down and you break it in a million pieces, and and then you think that by having done that, you have alleviated the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the mentality in the States. And there's a little bit of that coming to France because in France, the French, I've always noticed, do everything about 10 years later than they do.
Yeah.
They do what the Americans do 10 years later, and they don't always take the best things from America. So,
Yeah.
so that's, I'm always, watching for that and saying, oh my God, what are they going to do now? I'm a little bit worried about the cancel culture.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a little scary. I mean, because there's so many beautiful things that, like you said, that could be canceled to hide the bad past.
Yeah, I mean, and what I find so stupid about that cancel culture is that you can erase. You can get rid of a book or a sculpture or something, and then whoa, you've got rid of the past, but you haven't. The past will always be with us. You can't erase it and make it all clean and white and pure.
Yeah.
So
I really like how the Germans have gone about it. Like they very much talk about the past. They talk about Hitler. They talk about the Nazis. It's not something that they try to forget, like they educate on it and they don't like whitewash it.
yeah, so that's anyway. What else has changed? So many things have changed.
Yeah. The world is changing, but France, like you said, France is a little slow to change 10 years later. I've noticed the same thing. I've almost been here 10 years now, and even in that short amount of time.
Well, hey, wait for another 50.
Yeah, exactly. Then I can really tell you a story.
Yeah.
And let's talk about when you decided to start writing books. Like, what led to that?
Well, what led to that was that I had been writing for Time and the International Herald Tribune, which is now the International New York Times, as you know. I've been freelancing, and when you write stories for magazines and newspapers, you never, unless you're an editorialist, you never use the personal pronoun. You never say I, because nobody cares what you think, and they're right. But after all that time of writing those articles, I just thought to myself, I would really like to say what I think. And to do that, I had to write a book.
Yeah.
So I started writing a book, that first book, French Toast. I wrote it because I was sitting around thinking that I had basically pretty well adjusted to French culture and spoke French and put my kids in French schools and the whole thing. And yet there were all these cultural differences that I still didn't understand. And I just wrote them down on a piece of paper one day. And that became the book, actually.
Just taking little pieces and putting them together.
Well, all the themes, like politesse, politeness, kids in school, the way they act.
That's so great. They say that's what you should do, that you should always be writing your ideas down. You should have a little piece of paper with you at all times to take notes. I have terrible handwriting, so I hate doing that.
Well, it's you, and it's getting worse every day. But I mean, but it is important. The other thing I think about writing is that you have, I think you have to be passionate about your subject. And I was passionate about my subject for that first book.
Yeah, it shows.
And I was passionate from a subject in my fourth book, this latest book, Final Transgression. And the ones in between were nice books, and they were fun to write and everything. But there wasn't the passion of the first and the last one. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it is funny, but it makes sense, Like, I think that first book is always the most exciting, and then your newest book, you went through a whole other process with self-publishing, which we'll definitely talk about. But it is interesting, and I'm curious for you, like, what was the hardest and easiest part of writing that first book?
Oh my goodness! Well, speaking of getting it published was very hard. The second, and I must have rewritten that book about I don't even know how many times. I'm a big rewriter, and I must have rewritten it at least 15 times. I mean, and I rewrote the entire book one time because I showed it to an editor friend of mine at Time magazine who I greatly respected, and he kindly read the manuscript, and then we met together on a park bench near the office. And so I said, okay, well, what did you think? And he said, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think you're very funny, Harriet, but I think anybody could have written the book that you showed me. You need to write what you have in here, but be yourself, let loose, be funny, be the way you are.
Oh, I like that. That's great advice.
Isn't that great? And I sat down and I said, he's right. And I went back to the drawing board and I totally rewrote the entire book.
And did you enjoy that process?
Yes, it was great because it was as if he'd given me permission to let loose and be who I am.
Yeah. It's someone you trusted, their opinion, and those words kind of stuck in the back of your head.
Exactly. So that was radical, shall we say?
Radical. Yeah. Even getting a publisher back then was really hard because it's hard now. So, like, has that changed at all?
Oh my goodness, that book. I should write a book about the publication of French Toast because it was epic. Nobody wanted it. Everybody hated it. No, I'm kidding. No, but nobody wanted it because Peter Mayle had just come out with a book, and publishers are always looking for the same kind of book. And mine wasn't like Peter Mayle. Peter Mayle he treated the French like little stick I mean, it was a huge success. Good for him.
Yeah, yeah.
But his French people in it were kind of funny little stick people, and I was treating them as human beings, and that's not what is, that wasn't what people were looking for those days. So we went through a bunch of, I went through a bunch of agents, and I went through a bunch of publishers, and nobody really wanted it. And I found a small press in Paris who published it, and it just made this huge splash in LA. I got an entire page in the LA Times that
Oh, wow.
people would pay thousands of dollars to have a publicity agent do
That's
that.
great.
Yeah, and I got it for free because I knew the guy, and he had married a French woman, and he read my book, and he said, "Harriet," he said, "you're telling the story of my life, except the reverse." He laughed. He said, "Can I interview you?" And I said, "Sure." And he did. And man, that book just, and then the publishers in the States started coming around and saying, "What's this?" Blah, blah. And then it was bought up by a big publishing firm in the States.
So it's all about who you know. They want to see that big name attached to it first.
Yeah, they want buzz.
Trust it.
They wanted a buzz. Yeah.
They want that buzz. And so let's talk a little bit now about your new book that you self-published and some of the differences. Like, did you enjoy that process of self-publishing?
It was very instructive, and I'm glad I did it because I don't think that you should consider yourself a failure when you're not. And for me, failure is not self-publishing. Failure is not publishing at all. When you've gone through a number of publishers and they haven't wanted your work, it doesn't mean that your work isn't good. It means that they don't want that particular work at that particular time.
Yeah.
And I'm of an age that I wasn't going to spend another God knows how many more years trying to get it published, because I probably could have if I'd stuck it out.
Yeah, yeah. You just wanted to get it out because you were proud of it and
Yeah,
excited.
I thought it was a good book. I put my entire heart and soul into it, and I could not see why it would stay here in my house in a box and, and people couldn't read it. So yes, so to answer your question, self-publishing was very interesting, and I learned so much about the process and about what's really important and how much you need to spend or don't need to spend. So many vital things. And fortunately, I had my son who helped me at the very end upload it and do the technical stuff to get it online. But I did everything before that. I contracted the person to do the cover design. I worked with a developmental editor. I got a proofreader. I mean, I went through all the steps that you need to go through to get a quality book.
Yeah. I mean, it does take time and money, and that's what the publisher takes care of for you.
Right.
And it is interesting to see how those steps work.
Yes, it is. So I'm glad I had the experience. I don't know if I'd do it again, but I'm glad I did it once in my life.
Yeah, it's something different. And I think as writers and creatives, we're always looking for new challenges anyway. And I think self-publishing can be a bit of a challenge, just like getting a publisher is a challenge.
Well, it is. And it depends on the challenge you want and how much time you have left and what your priorities are.
Definitely. I think it's less shameful now. I mean, when you were self-publishing before, it was like, oh, you're not a real writer. So many people do it now.
It's changed a lot. Speaking of changes, that has changed really a lot, because in the olden days, self-publishing was for the losers. But also in the olden days, I think it was more difficult to make an attractive looking book if you did have a quality product. People would self-publish, and it really looked self-published too.
Yeah. There's not all these companies that work with you now, and it's kind of affordable to get a designer or a formatter because there's so many people doing it.
Yeah, it is. You can do it now if you know who to contract.
Yeah, I think that's completely true.
A business person more.
Yeah.
It's more active than passive, because when you have a publisher doing it, you're also under the thumb of the publisher you have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And is there any places in Paris that you find inspiring to write? Like, is there anywhere you go or any kind of rituals you have?
Yeah, rituals. Listen, that's why I'm COVID has been very bad for me, but it came at the right time, this COVID pandemic, because I like to write in cafes, and there are no cafes open.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had finished my book, and I was only working on the promotion and on the nuts and bolts of the book, so that was okay. But to write, I definitely write in cafes.
Yeah.
Not on park benches, cafes. I like the little background noise. I like the coffee. Um, I like, I just like being outside like that, or out
Mhm.
of a house like that.
You're like absorbing the energies of all the people around
Exactly.
you.
Because if I'm all by myself in my office at home, I just kind of fall asleep.
It's too boring.
It's so boring.
And is there something you would go back and tell your younger writer self when you were first starting?
Oh yes, I would tell myself something that I love. Somebody, I don't remember where I heard this, was shut up and write. Somebody said that once, and it's true. If you talk about your projects and you talk about what you're writing, you can talk it to death. And then you get back to your desk and you start writing, and you realize that you talked a real good game, but that isn't it.
Yeah.
So if I'd known that, I wouldn't have wasted time on that. Although I didn't do that, so I did a lot for this fiction book because it was my first fiction book, but I didn't do it so much for the other ones. Fortunately, what else would I do? Oh, I would have stepped things up a bit. I mean, I haven't been that prolific. I think I would have got down to business and maybe produced a few more books.
Written more. But you're too busy being a family woman and writing other things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was writing other things. I had other things to do, but still.
Yeah, there's always so much to do. And why do you think creative people are attracted to Paris?
Because Paris is so beautiful, and because there's
Mhm.
so much creativity here, and so much, it's kind of in the air. And also, you are allowed to dream, which I think is really important. In the
Mhm.
States, you're always rushing someplace, and you have to be justifying yourself. Where are you going? What are you doing? Are you going to a meeting? Are you blah 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 blah? Whereas here, you can literally tell people that you're not doing anything,
Yeah.
and nobody
And they
cares.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and you appreciate it because you're not really not doing anything, but you may be dreaming, or you in your head making up some kind of story or something, and I think the French respect that.
Yeah, yeah, I think the arts are respected here. I feel like in the States, it's like, oh, you're a photographer and what else? Like
Yeah.
how do you make your living?
Well, yeah, it's very tied to money and to monetary
Yeah.
value, which the French don't do. And for all my books, it's really interesting. When I would interview French people, they never asked me who my publisher was,
Hmm.
and they never asked me anything to do with the making of the book kind of thing, the money
Yeah.
part of the book. And the only people who ever asked me about who my publisher was were the Americans, of course.
Yeah, it's always like the nuts and bolts part they're more interested in than the art itself.
Right, exactly. So we did.
And so, do you have any advice for people who are trying to find their own creative gifts or things they're good at?
Well, I would say, as that nice editor gentleman told me, I'd say be true to yourself in this choice of your subject and in the way you express yourself. Don't try to be some other writer. Be the writer that you are.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, I think it's really hard to not get twisted into other people's perceptions and what you should want and what you should be. And then I think it's like people need to take a break and step away from all that to really even know who they are in some ways. Because I think for so long we're just listening, especially with social media too. I mean, you're looking at Instagram and Facebook, and this person's doing this, and you should be doing that. But maybe you don't really want to do that.
yeah, and especially these days when there's no silence, there's no quiet time, and we're all looking on social media to see who did what, I find it very disturbing. And when I
Hmm.
really want to write, or really want to think about what I'm writing or what I'm going to write, I just go off of it. I go off of social media. Totally.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, where do you find your influences? Where do you find your inspiration?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. The inspiration for my books, for example, uh,
Mhm.
when I told you I wanted to write about cultural differences, and I had read a book called Invisible Differences. It was by Raymond Carroll, who was a French woman living in the States, and she had written a book about how different the Americans were from the French. So she was doing it from the other side.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah, and it was fabulous. It was her thesis actually, and so I read it, and I remember saying to my mom, I said, you know, this book really, I really, really was so interested in this book. There's only one thing. It's really not funny because it was a thesis. It was academic.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to write a book about what I think about this subject, but on the reverse. But I'm going to let myself be funny because I'm not an academic. So
Yeah, you had a little more like freedom to make it fun and
exercise that freedom. That's what I meant by be true to yourself. Don't try to be who you aren't when you write.
were you worried about offending anybody, like especially French people when you were
I
writing?
offended everybody. No. Yeah, sure. I think guilt is a real problem for a writer. I was afraid of offending people, and
Hmm.
I tried not to. But obviously, people always find it. You did.
Yeah, I think it's normal that you're gonna offend somebody somewhere, no matter what you do.
Somebody will find it, but you kind of go beyond that because otherwise you can't write a word.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to let that go.
Yeah.
And talk about your new book, Final Transgression. Tell us about it.
Okay, so for Final Transgression, uh, this was inspired from a true story in my husband's family. And when I heard this story, the minute I heard this story, I was transfixed. I just knew I had to write this story, not the true story, but something around the true story.
Hmm.
So that was another book, I like to say, of a passionate interest, like my very first book too. I mean, nothing would have stopped me from writing that story. And
Yeah, you were just so drawn to it.
yes, and it had to be fiction because there wasn't enough information to make it a nonfiction. And also, you're talking about offending people. I didn't want to get into the business of offending anybody or upsetting anybody. So,
Yeah, of course. And talk about that first story that inspired it. Like, what did they tell you?
well, it was kind of what they didn't tell me. I knew that there was this aunt in the family and that she had died during the war, and that was it. And uh, but nobody ever spoke about her. So one day I said to Philippe, would you mind if I kind of researched your aunt? Because I think this is strange. And he
Yeah.
said, no, no, not at all. And he said, I'll help you. So the two of us went off on this quest to find out more. And it led us down some blind alleys. And then we discovered more things. And it was like this treasure hunt in a way. And
And as you were discovering facts, did that help you build more of the narrative in your book?
yes, and I tell the story of one day we were at Philippe's parents' home for their 50th wedding anniversary, and they had invited many of their friends. And I was speaking with one of their friends who was an elderly gentleman, and all of a sudden he said to me, "Oh, that was bad business about," and he named my mother-in-law's sister.
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh my goodness, he's going to tell me the story now." And I was all ears. And then all of a sudden I looked around and I noticed my mother-in-law was standing rather close to me in a small room.
Mm.
I said, if I let him tell me the story, that's just very bad conduct and it will wreck her whole 50th wedding anniversary. So I changed the subject.
Ah,
That's what I
you didn't get the information.
wow. And that's what I mean by going down a blind alley. And of course I never got it from him. So so then we went down to the area in France where the family had lived, and then we started interviewing people. The mayor, lady sweeping in front of her door, lots of different people, and we got the story then.
And were people excited to talk to you, or were they kind of like strange with you?
Some people were very strange, and others were very. They were not only willing, but I think happy to talk to.
Mhm.
But it's like many of these things in France. The war was maybe 70 years ago, but it's as if it were yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all these people live together in very small villages, and they all know what the other one did during the war. So
Yeah.
even if they do talk to you and they're very frank and they tell you what they know, they generally always say, "Let's keep this between us."
Yeah, it's kind of like a dark patch, and
Yeah.
everyone was doing what they had to survive in a lot of ways too.
Yes. So it was just fascinating, and I learned so much about the history of World War II. I learned so much about uh, how people were divided there was
Mhm.
a civil war in the southwest of France that I had no idea about.
Yeah.
French,
Yeah, yeah.
French. So it was a wonderful learning experience on top of being an experience of telling a bare bones kind of story of what happened to this woman, which happened to a lot of other people too.
Do you think those issues still carry on today? Like you said, it wasn't that long ago. Do you think like some of those problems or black spots, do you think we still see them in today's society?
Well, these were extreme reactions, and it was wartime, so
Yeah.
that exacerbated everything. I think the French, I mean, so are the Americans, but are very political people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Very an ancient land where there have been revolutions and there have been killings and massacres, and I mean, if you go through French history, goodness, and the number of
It's very violent.
very violent, and the number of times they've been invaded and by the Germans. I mean, World War II was the third time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of death and also even you listen to their national anthem, the Marseilles.
Pretty
A lot of blood in that.
Yeah, that's a pretty bloody. So yeah, so I really immersed myself in the history, and it was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think that when we think of France, we think of like the Eiffel Tower and wine. We don't think of all the war and bloodshed and violence that took place here.
Well, even when I speak to audiences and I tell people, I say, uh, what do you think about the month of June 1944? Well, the first answer is, of course, D-Day. And I said,
Hmm.
what do you think the French were doing on D-Day? Well, of course, they were being happy that the Americans and the Allies came.
Hmm.
But they don't know that only 4 days later, the Germans made their way up from the south of France. And on their way, they committed the massacre of Oradour-sur-Glane, where they killed 641 people in that village, the entire population, ex-
Ugh.
except for 3 people who got out. So, and when I say that, people are kind of like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, it didn't all just end so quickly. There was other things going on.
Exactly. There were a lot of other things going on, but it's natural in the sense that the Americans and all the Allies were coming from afar and
Hmm.
to do a job, and they did a good job, and they liberated Europe. So, but uh, it's just interesting that's one facet of the story of the all the
Yeah,
things that were going on.
yeah, definitely. There's so many things we don't think about, which maybe your book will give people more insight.
Well, I hope so. And a lot of people who read, really, if you look at the reviews on Amazon, and people have told me too, that they say, I had no idea. And it was so interesting to learn about that period of time. So I hope my readers will. Yeah,
There's something for everyone. Education, France, a story. I love it.
yeah, got something for everybody in that book. I love
And where,
that book. Yeah.
and where can people find out more about you, buy your book, connect with you?
I have a website that is kind of like it's kind of I always call it a giant visiting card because I don't write it on a blog. but you learn all about the book, and it's just my name. It's www.harrietweltyrochefort.com.
Perfect. Well, I will share that in the show notes so everyone can click on it and go check out your book and learn about you. And thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you, Crystal. It was really lovely, and continue your wonderful podcast. Everybody loves them.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.